My name's Stephen Duncombe, and I teach at New York University. I teach the history and politics of media, but I'm also the co-founder and co-director of the Center for Artistic Activism, and we run a training institute for grassroots organizers called the School for Creative Activism. First, I should let you know that, I had a 20-year run of being just old-fashioned sort of boots-on-the-ground community organizer. That's what I've done since I was 17 years old. And I came to arts activism through that practice. And I came to arts activism for two reasons. One is I found it to be more effective. And what I mean by more effective is, if you think about like the first rule of guerrilla warfare is know your terrain and use it to your advantage. Well, the political terrain of today is one of signs and symbols and spectacles and stories, and you really have to be able to operate on that terrain if you actually want to get your message heard and if you want to reach people. And so arts activism is ideally situated to act on that terrain. So one of the things I was interested in is that I thought bringing arts into activism made activism more effective. The second reason I think it's really interesting is because people have access to arts and culture who normally feel locked out of political process. In a lot of ways, it forces activists, outside agitators like ourselves, really, to listen to people and to understand that they have resources, they have knowledges, which are absolutely invaluable. And I don't mean this as a theoretical point. I mean absolutely practically invaluable because they know the terrain in which they operate better than anybody else. And they have the skills already. People who are locked out of other institutions, other sort of pathways to power. People that tend to be younger, tend to be poorer, tend to be of color. Those are the people that actually tend to have the most cultural skills, because in a way, culture is a place where those people can excel. And so you're actually drawing on the most marginalized people's strengths as opposed to their weaknesses. And I think if we're serious about sort of, furthering democracy, we don't want to tell people what to do. We actually want them to open up the questions themselves and answer it themselves. I think art is very good for that. That is the big question. And so one of the things myself and my partner, Steve Lambert, who's an artist, have been doing is interviewing political artists with a very simple question. How do you know if it works? And of course, it's a simple question, but the answers become very complicated, okay? So people have different ways of measuring success. Some people measure in how much press they get, okay? How much media coverage they get for their particular action because of the flashy graphics they use, their performative styles, and so on and so forth. And that works, but I think it's insufficient. Some people talk about it in terms of how many discussions did they start? How many spaces did they open up and have discussions with people about politics or about political issues that normally would not have had those discussions? And that's another way to judge it. But one of the things that arts does really well is it changes the fundamental ways that we understand and perceive the world. And how do you measure that? That is, that the real efficacy of arts activism may not be something that we find in the short term, but instead a change in perception, a change in the way of making sense in the world.